Hello and welcome to the PMP Podcast. I'm RJ Isaac, your host, and this is the first episode of the Thursday show. I don't have a name for it yet, but this is where I'm going to be sitting down with property managers and hearing about the crazy stories and the crazy experiences that we as property managers tend to go through. And so I am sitting down today with Erik Leauschner, and I am so excited to hear about some of the stories and experiences that he has had in his property management career. So thank you so much, Erik, for joining me today.
Hey, yeah, it's great to be here, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you and tell some of these stories. I'm fairly new to the property management industry. I'm retired from the Army. Then I worked for corporate America for Xerox for about 5 or 7 years. Decided to do my own thing here. So starting out, I'm in a college town. I'm in a small college town, Blacksburg, Virginia, home of Virginia Tech. Most people have heard of that. So we've got a good mix of probably 50% student housing, 50%. I call it professional housing. People that aren't students.
Awesome. And so, and how long have you actually been doing the property management for?
We've had this office open for going on about 4 years now.
Okay. Awesome. You know, I can say that one of my craziest stories I had was actually very shortly after starting in property management. And so I know you don't have to be in the industry very long to really start having just some of the crazy experiences that, a lot of people who aren't in the industry just don't have a way to relate with and to understand about some of the things that have happened and go on. Yeah. And so, can you tell me, so what, let's just jump right into it. What would you say, if I had to ask you point blank, what is so far in your past 4 years of doing property management, what has been the crazy situation that you've had to deal with?
I'd say, so it's funny you say that because one of the really crazy situations happened probably the first year we were in business. And, one of the great things about property management is you never know what you're going to be doing from day to day. And you never know when you go to a house and open that door, what's behind door number 2, right? And so, we're in an apartment, people had moved out, and they had been, there had been some eviction action started. But anyways, they moved out. I'm down there with my maintenance guy, and we're just checking the place out, and he comes walking out with a kitten, and I'm like, what is that? He's like, there's a kitten in here. I was like, oh gosh, we better let it out. And then we moved a bookcase or something. There's like 5 more. So we found a whole house full of kittens. And, luckily we were able to take them down to the shelter, and they took kittens. That was a pretty wild experience. Took over another house for an absentee landlord who had been managing it himself, and he was in Virginia. He was out in California. The lady had to pay rent 5-6 months, and we were trying to get her out, and we finally did it. And oh my gosh, that was the worst place I have ever seen. We probably spent $20,000, $30,000 getting that place back up. I had to get the exterminators in before I could even get the junk man in and the cleaners in to get it. There was stuff thrown out of the carpets, and it was very strange, very sad, because there were little kids living in there, and
oh man,
yeah. But yeah, so between that and people coming in with just crazy things that they want to do, trying to get people to clean up after themselves when they move out. It's always interesting too with the talking with the owners, we're very much in compliance with all the fair housing rules and regulations. But, sometimes the owners come in and they ask us a question. It's like, can we do this or that? So, no, part of what we do is educate, right? And that's why, that's why people hire us, because we know what we're doing. We know the laws, we know the rules, keep them out of trouble. And they're like, well, we don't want to rent to boys. We only want to rent to girls. This is more with student housing. And the first thing I tell them is, well, you can't do that. And the second thing I tell them is, and oh, by the way, I'm here to tell you that girls are not necessarily cleaner than boys. Because we've been we've had some apartments with 3 or 4 young ladies in there, and they were not any cleaner than the apartments that were occupied by the 3 or 4 young gentlemen.
I'm actually curious. So, how would you say the college students are as tenants? Do you find them to be problematic in any way, or do they tend to be pretty good tenants?
I'd say knock on wood, we have not had problems with the college kids. And I'll date myself. I went to college in the mid '80s, and it's a different group of kids that are in college these days. It's very, very different. They're very affluent. They tend to take care of the properties. I think the worst we've had is that they're just dirty. They don't clean the bathroom, the kitchen on a routine basis. But cleaning's no big deal.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. And even damage, this is hard sometimes to explain to an owner. This is a business, right? Don't get emotionally attached to this condo or this townhouse. And if someone punches a hole in the wall, it's really not that big a deal. It takes about an hour or two to fix it, and you'll never know that it was there. And so short of them burning the place to the ground, there's really not a whole lot of damage they can do that can't be fixed. A little time and a little money, or maybe a little time and a lot of money. And with the we do everything online. All their rent payments are online. I have hardly any late rent payments. Everybody's doing it online. They're not chasing people for money. They're pretty quiet. We've not had any noise complaints, and so they are pretty good tenants. And when you're renting I'd say a 4-bedroom apartment to 4 college students, their view on that rent's a whole lot different than renting it to, say, a family. So they see the rent as 1/4 of whatever you advertise it at, whereas a family sees it as whole, right? Because they're trying to pay that. And
there's the pros and cons of that too.
Yeah,
I mean, just when you have the whole mentality that, well, I paid my portion, and so the other tenant, they didn't pay their portion, and you have to explain, well, no, each person is fully responsible for the rent. So yes. I get your point. Like, oftentimes it works out well, but when it doesn't, when someone falls through cracks or just decides, hey, I'm leaving and abandoning my other roommates, that's when I at least in my experience, I've had a lot of challenges there. But that's really cool to hear that they have been working well, and that even aligns with what my experience has been. Like, I get so many owners that have said they don't want to rent to people who are in college or have just recently graduated college, and that they want to avoid those people because they're just not going to take care of the property. There's this mentality that they're not good tenants. But in the experiences I've had, if they've always been really good tenants, very responsive, take care of the property well enough. I mean, I'm nothing I'm going to complain about. I'm not saying it's always going to be this immaculate, wonderful place, but they take a good care, slightly above average care of the property, in my experience. And then what I find interesting is the people that a lot of times the property owners are wanting to put into the property, people who have owned a home for 20 plus years, in my experience, those people actually tend to be not bad tenants per se, but more challenging tenants. They tend to be more like they're used to owning a house and having the freedoms that come with owning a house and doing things their own way. And then they start having to go under the rules of the property management company, and they resist that. They argue about it. They feel like they know better. And in my experience, I've had way more challenges with people who have been property owners for 20 plus years than I have 20-year-old college students.
Yes. Yeah. We see that. Our housing market here is super hot. And so we get, and it's also kind of a retirement area. And so we get a lot of people like that are renting as they build, or renting while they're looking to buy. And, depending on how they maintain their property, they tend to want, they'll call over the smallest thing, which is fine. We want to keep property up, but they definitely have a different take on it than somebody that's been living at home. Yeah. So, along the lines with the younger kids, we do a lot of education. I don't know, maybe that's just my nature, but a lot of these kids have never signed a legal contract before. And so this lease, the first legal contract, they never signed on their own. And they don't read it. I know they don't read it. There's a lot of stuff in it, and I just know they're not reading it. But, you were talking before about the joint several liability. So we always have that discussion, particularly with the parents, about exactly what that means. They're like, well, what's our portion of the rent? I don't know. That's for you guys to decide. You're all adults. They come up with a number. Sometimes, one guy pays the cable, so another guy pays a little less rent, whatever. I'm just looking for the total amount due for the house to come in every month. And if Bob takes off, that the other two are stuck there, they're going to have to make up the difference.
One of the things I'd actually do in that situation is I would tell the parents 100% of the rent, like that your portion of the rent is the full amount of the rent. Now, if the other roommates are coming in to chip in and help cover that cost, great, that's the discussion you guys have. But the lease contract, the way it's written is that you are completely responsible for the whole portion of the rent, just to make sure that again, just to drive that point home, because no matter how often I have people say, oh, I get it. When things, don't work the way things are meant to work, and the plans fall through, that's when they're like, oh, well, I just did my portion. It's like, no, there is no portion. That's not how this works.
Yeah. And I think the most challenging aspect of managing student housing is managing student parents, because they are not off a lease at least for us. They're co-signers. I'm in Virginia. Co-signer has no right, to any discussion about the property other than you're missing some money. Where's my money? And they want all to talk about, why did you charge for this, or why did you charge for that, or this? And boy, when you have an upset parent, last thing you want to say to it is, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you about that. That's not a way to calm the waters. So we've even gone so far as we just put a standard clause in our lease. It's in every lease. It just says, if there's a co-signer, I waive, I give you permission to talk to the co-signer about anything having to do with the lease. So it's already there. They've already signed it. I could speak freely with the co-signers, try and explain what's going on. So that was something we implemented a couple of years ago, and it's really paid off for us.
That's good. That's good. And I've always figured that, look, if the co-signer is signing the lease, they're also financially responsible for the lease too. and they should be able to get those questions answered, because it's kind of an unusual situation when the tenants don't pay, and then you call the co-signer and say, hey, the tenants aren't paying, we got to collect the rent, you are responsible for this too. And like they're going to ask questions about that. So that totally makes sense. So I'm curious, again, you've been doing this for 4 years. What has been some of the biggest challenges that you've run into when you first got into the industry?
Well, hey, I think like any business that's starting up, it's growing the business, right? So, lead generation, I guess that's probably the biggest challenge, is the lead generation. And keeping, I think it's important to keep up with, know that you're supposed to be the subject matter expert, right? We're the subject matter expert. So we need to be. So we need to, I'm a realtor. You have to be a licensed agent in Virginia in order to do professional property management. I think that's the case in a lot of states, but the licensing training and classes, out of an 80-hour block, I think you get like 2 hours on property management, and all that is it's for saying, you don't want to do that. It's so finding out where you could, taking it upon yourself to go out and learn about property management, and learn and understand, not just, understand the laws. We have a landlord tenant act in Virginia. It sits on my desk. It's got tabs and highlights and stuff in it. You gotta, that's the rule book, right? I mean, you don't go to the Super Bowl without a copy of it. And and a lot of that stuff, when you're first starting out, you don't know. And now, you're always like, okay, well, was it 30 days or 60 days, or was it 90 days, or is it by the month or whenever? And you mature in a job and do it, that stuff starts to sink in. But then, in Virginia, it's every July is when the new laws will hit. So, come May and June, you're sitting in all seminars and trying to get up to date on what the new rules are going to be. Keeping up with I think you probably aware the HUD just released a letter yesterday about hit/jump fees in property management. So, staying on top of all that type of stuff, everything that's evolving around ESAs and all that, there's a lot of pending legislation on that now. So, that's a lot of it. I was very surprised to find that a lot of times I think I'm running a maintenance company that does property management outside. Maintenance is a huge part of property management. Our inventory is a little bit older, I think, than maybe some other places, which just means there's more stuff to fix. So building that vendor base, meeting those vendors. We also happen to be in a market that's very competitive in terms of any of the trades. There's a huge housing shortage, so anybody that can swing a hammer wants to build $50,000 kitchens. They don't want to hang a smoke detector, right? So finding people that'll work for you is a big part of that first year or so. Establishing those relationships. So we have good relationships. We try to keep, our vendors, our plumbers, electricians. We tend to be very loyal to them and keep them fed at times. So we come, like we had a huge cold snap here on Christmas, through Christmas weekend, and we were able to get people to come out, look at our stuff, as opposed to like, oh, we'll get there, end of January. So, establishing those relationships is super critical.
That is incredibly true. And I think this is something that maybe I maybe have a misperception on this, but I tend to think that a lot of property managers don't understand how important great vendor relationships are. And one of the best stories that I can give from my own experience about this is at a company I used to work for, we had a really good working relationship with a big, they did HVAC. They did a little more HVAC, but HVAC and plumbing is the two big things they did. And they were probably our biggest vendor by dollar volume, maybe not the actual number of work orders. That's probably our cleaning vendor, but the actual money that they were getting, they were probably our biggest vendor, and we sent them a ton of work. And so we always try to make sure we knew the people at the office, were very friendly, very polite, paid on time, all these sorts of important things. And there's one time where we had to get some, there's some issues with flooding, and we had to get some pumps in the basement replaced to this property. And we're going to put in, I can't remember, it's been a while. I think there's two sump pumps that had to be replaced. And we wanted to replace them with some battery backup sump pumps. So that way, if the power goes out, we don't have flooding, we don't have to worry about that. And so they sent in the estimate for getting the work done. But what they did is they wrote down the estimate so that way it showed the unit cost of each one. And so I saw the unit cost and said, okay, great. Didn't realize the unit cost. I thought it was the whole project cost. I was like, wow, this is a really good deal. I like this price. Called the owner. Owner said, yep, good price. Let's move forward. And then we get the actual invoice back, and it's double. I'm like, what happened here? And I look at the invoice, like, oh no, this is terrible. And what I was able to do in this case is I called the vendor and I said, look, I made a mistake here. You did nothing wrong. You did great work, no complaints, but I made a big mistake here. I looked at this, I didn't read it properly. Is there any way that you can work with us on this project so I can to help us out? And and then the guy just right on the phone said, sure, we'll go and do it just at cost. We'll take all our profit out and just do it at cost. And then I was able to then call the owner and tell the owner, yeah, this was my mistake. And the owner was like, well, I'm not really happy about it, but I would have had to do the same work anyway. And this way, I'm still getting now this discount because now they're getting it at the at-cost price instead of the one that had the profit on it originally. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain about that because I would have approved the full price anyway. And so it would end up working out in the end. But if we didn't have that great relationship with the vendor to start off with, then that would have never worked. I mean, it would have been a disaster, and the owner would have been unhappy about it. Yeah. And so it's a great example of why great vendor relationships are incredibly important for property managers and can't be overestimated.
Yeah. And we, you talk about paying on time. I know, it's a bad thing that I do. It's not, if there's a water heater that's out or something, I'm getting it fixed, I'm going to pay the vendor. And then I usually always get money back from the owner, but there's a lot of people who's like, I'm not calling anybody until I got the money sitting. And, nobody's winning there. The tenants are getting upset. So we'll just go ahead and get the repairs made, and they work with us in terms of, a lot of these guys are pay at time of service. If you're let's say a residential customer. So like the HVAC guys that we use, they carry credit card machines, all the techs do it. They expect to be paid in the driveway after they fix it. But we're on an invoice system. So we don't have to deal with that, right? So we can just set them out, and we don't have to be standing there to pay the bill when they get finished. But that's only because we've been doing business with them for so long, and they know we've always paid on time. We always pay the bill. They trust us. And the other thing I mentioned, I'm in a small town. And reputation is a two-way sword. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if you upset a few of these guys, it's going to be all over very quickly, and the Bible just close up and go up because it is. Oh yeah, I So here's a crazy story for you. Selling managing a property. These people are they just needed me to manage it for a little while they were out hiking in the mountains of Oregon, and they needed somebody to look after the house while there was some work being done on it. And I'm talking to the realtor, and she says, "Do you know this lady?" And I said, "Yeah, I know she is. A high school with her." And she, "Well, that's my aunt." And then, so, it's like, everybody knows everybody. It's like that, what is it, the 6 degrees of separation or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's great. It's great. Uh, you know, another story along those lines where I was getting ready to close out a property I was buying. We're supposed to close out, it's like on a Friday afternoon or something. It's Thursday morning. I don't have the HUD one from the title company yet. I'm trying to figure out how much money, right? And then she goes, "Who do you close it with?" So I'm closing with this attorney. "Oh yeah, okay, we know him, no problem." And who's your insurance with? I'm like, "Oh, it's with this local insurance." "Oh yeah, no problem." So they all just got together and got the whole thing set up. And the guy at the bank calls me and says, "Okay, this is how much money you need. I can just move it for you from one of your accounts I can just move it from your account to the attorney's account because you guys both bank here." I'm like, "Okay, cool." It done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was it. And it was, I thought it was very, I was really cool. It's a small enough area that all these people knew each other reputationally, count on each other, and it was just like a couple of phone calls and the whole thing was taken care of. No stress. So that's why I always tell people that part of our business strategy is to spend our money with local businesses. So local banks, local insurance companies, as much local as we can. I mean, not everything that locally, but we try. We want to be part of the business community, and so we really strive to do that.
So what's the population of the town you're based in? Roughly, I'm speaking.
Well, so we're 50,000 ish, with about half of that are students.
Okay.
So it's a whole different town. So our area where we work what's called the New River Valley of Virginia, and the population's about 150,000, and that's probably over 250 square miles. About three counties. But we mostly are focused on the 3 larger towns that are all within, 20, 30 minutes of each other. So, and that in itself presents some unique challenges. We're not like Atlanta or Charlotte or LA where you have, 5 million people crunched in there, and there's just like tons of properties. Now on the other hand, there's lots of property management companies, a lot of people competing in that space. We don't have quite as many people competing here, but it is a smaller market, in terms of population, and we're, geographically kind of isolated a little bit. There's this mentality. There's this mentality I'm telling. When I went to Northern Virginia, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but, people are driving, they're spending 3-4 hours, 2-3-4 hours going to work, and another 2-3-4 hours in the car coming home from work. So if you told them, something was 20 minutes away, they'd be ecstatic. Here and now, you tell somebody, that property's 20 minutes from here, and they're like, oh, well, that's a little far away. Oh, it's a mentality thing, and it's the same for us. There are towns we could expand into, but that's a lot of windshield time, right? And maintenance techs are getting paid what they're staring at the highway, running the van up and down the highway. It going down to show properties and things like that. It's just a little bit too much. So we tend to stay a little more concentrated.
Yeah, that is a really big challenge with trying, again, just drive time just cuts into things so much. And the challenge is, it's like every mile you have to double it because you have to go two ways. And so, if it takes you 20 minutes to get there, well, now it's a 40-minute round trip time that you're not doing anything. And then if you have traffic that can eat into that time, it's something that also has to be accounted for. Again, I used to work in South Dakota, and South Dakota, one of the things that they'll say there is that you have two seasons. You have winter and you have road construction, and both problems really slow things down, because in the winter you have snow and ice and slush, and the roads are just, you can't drive quickly. You got to be very careful, and there's you'll see trucks on the side of the road that just got swerved off because they were driving too recklessly. And then in the summer you just have orange cones that you're trying to weave out, and you have these situations where they can only have one row of traffic go through, so you have to just sit there and wait for 30 minutes until it's your turn to go through. And it's a hassle. It's such a hassle. But with how it's spread out, again, this South Dakota, it's a very spread out state. Like it's very rural.
Yeah.
And so if you want to go and get more properties to manage, that's what you have to do. You just have to say, this is the situation that we're in, and we have to go and go out to that. Right now, I work for a company in Los Angeles, and it's the differences between South Dakota and Los Angeles. Oh man, it's just in so many different ways, in so many different aspects. Yeah. It is just so different. So yeah, you don't have to worry so much about like you still have to worry because Los Angeles is massive, but so that's still a component to consider that. But at least there's enough volume that you can find properties and try and keep stuff more within reason, in a closer area. But still, there's the challenges are just so different from market to market. And you can always just assume that the challenges you're facing in one market will be the same in another market.
Exactly. Well, I heard on some real estate podcast, and I can't remember what it was for life of me now, but the guy's like, real estate is a local activity. It's a local market. He's like, I work on the south side of town. I don't do anything on the north side of town. I don't go to that market. And I'm sure it's like that in LA, where it's like, I've looked at this part of LA, but I don't know anything about that part of LA.
Well, you're talking about the laws earlier.
We have another,
and like the challenge with Los Angeles, you'll have say West Hollywood has their own rules about referring to tenants. Then you have the county, and the county has their own rules. And then you have the state, and then the state, and if not, of course, you have the federal laws. And now and then, of course, you can't just say, all right, I'm only going to do West Hollywood, because that's just it. You got to go bigger than that. And so now you have to be in a lot of these smaller towns.
Yeah.
Or other, not, I should say small towns, but these different parts of the larger LA metro area, and each one is going to have different rules. And so now you have to keep track of, all right, this property is in this part of the greater Los Angeles metro area. And so trying to figure out how all the rules interact with each other and which properties and which, and of course, then you have the rent control housing, and it just, it's insane. It's crazy.
All right. I read stuff from landlord or property managers, landlords in California. I have no idea how y'all do business out here. It just boggles my mind. Virginia is still a very landlord friendly state, but I mean, I read some of that stuff. It's just like, I don't know how you make any money. Uh, it's just incredible. I just trying to wrap your head around all the different rules, like you said. But hey, I mean, I thought of another
Yeah.
story for you. Um, maybe you can edit this back around towards the beginning. So where we do periodic inspections of the properties while they're occupied. We're looking for unauthorized pests, unauthorized tenants. We check the HVAC filters, that type of thing. And so I go to this house, and there's a cat laying on the couch. And so in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm pretty sure this house doesn't have any cats in it, right? And so there's the cat. There's like a litter box, a scratchy post, all this other stuff in there. And so I take some pictures, and there was two young ladies that they weren't in college, but they were like, it was like their first place that they owned. And I call them at the office, and I'm like, or I served a notice, 21-day, conform or quit notice. They said they wanted to come talk to me about it. I was like, sure, what is it? And they sat at the table in the conference room, looked me dead in the eyes, and there's no cat. And I said, what are you talking about? There's no cat in there. And, so I got the pictures, and I brought the pictures in, and I showed the pictures, and they just kind of looked at me, and I looked at them, and they're like, well, can we keep it? I was like, yeah, I don't care if you have a cat there. It's just supposed to be on the lease, and you're supposed to be paying the pet rent for it. It's like, all you have to do is ask, but they just looked me straight in the eyes, like, there was no cat. There's no cat. So, it was, and then and another group, they had there was marijuana laying out. We have a no smoking policy, so I don't care if you want to smoke it or not, but you're not smoking in the house. And so I confronted them about that. And they're like, "Oh, well, that's not marijuana. That's hemp. We smoke hemp." It's like, you're smoking some one-of-grade hemp if you think I'm going to believe that. And again, it's like, I don't care if you have it or not. You just can't smoke in the house, and yes, that means, there's like, they're smoking on the porch. People wonder why the lease is 800 pages long. It's like, because you can't, when you say no smoking in the house, that means no smoking on the porch either. But you gotta put that in there, right? And so they just keep going, because they stand in the doorway. They think they're standing in the doorway smoking out the window, but it all blows back. Anyways, those stories. And another one, we were managing a trailer park for a short period of time. Yeah,
well, that'd be interesting.
The tenant, enough. I'm one of those guys that has to stick their finger in the lights. Okay, I always know better than everybody else. Don't do it, Eric. Don't do it. Don't do it. Say, there's some money to be made here. And so, but they call about the plumbing. We get underneath the trailer, and two things. One, the sewer pipe is like completely disconnected from the toilet, so everything's just like flushing out underneath. At one point, the kitchen sink was clogged up, so they just cut the drain pipe somewhere between the sink and the main sewer line in the house. They just cut it, and so that's all drinking out under the house. So we ended up calling a septic tank company, because they have the truck. We had to vacuum up all the stuff from underneath the trailer. in order to get, because the plumber's like,
Yeah.
and you know, and the septic tank guy got down and he's like, I'm not going on. So our maintenance tech ended up using, you know, their truck. They get vacuumed all that stuff up. Got the plumber there. Got the plumbing hooked back up. But yeah, it's just all just up and down on the ground, man. It was very, very strange.
Okay. I gotta tell you my big crap story. This is okay. There was this wasn't me personally who's doing this. It was someone else that one of my colleagues that's working with. And I saw the pictures of everything afterwards. So it's not quite firsthand, but I'll count this one. So there's a property that that tenants moved out of, and we had to go do the move out inspection. And the person who goes and does the inspection, she gets there and it smells really bad. Like it's a mess. It's disgusting. It's terrible. And so she's going through taking pictures and documenting the things, doing the whole process. And then she gets to the bathroom, and I'm pretty sure she said that when she got there, the toilet seat was down. No, toilet seat had to be up. Yeah, toilet seat was up already. And the entire toilet was filled to the brim with crap, like just all the way to the top. You couldn't put anything else in there. It was disgusting. And next to it gets worse. Okay. Next to the toilet, there was a bag.
Oh my God.
A plastic like Walmart bag. And the bag was filled with human crap. It gets worse. She goes downstairs into the basement. And in the basement, there's a wall of boxes. It's about 4 boxes high. I think there's like 20 boxes altogether. All of the boxes are filled with bags filled with human crap.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Oh, it is like, it gets worse. The tenant who lived there was the head cook at a local restaurant.
Are you kidding me? Oh my God. You look at stuff and you're like, I'm not the neatest guy. I'm the first one to admit. You go at my house, there's going to be some dishes in the sink. The floor is probably not swept as well as it should be every day. But I go in some of these places and I'm just like, I don't know how you live like this, guys.
Oh yeah.
And it's a big, you're kind of on this when we're doing these periodic inspections and trying to be fair and reasonable, right? Fair and reasonable. It's like, if you don't want to wash the dishes every day, probably not the end of the world. So, is the house clean? Yeah, I guess. It's when you see something like that, like all those piles of shit, and you're like, okay, this isn't gonna fly. You gotta get rid of this. What do? You just burn the house down at that point, I guess. So
well, we sent our we had a contract handyman, and we sent him over there. Yeah, we gotta get you to clean this up. And he like walks in the bathroom and says, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like, how much is it gonna take? It's like, pay me double. And it's like, fine.
Fine.
You like, that's fine. We'll pay you double.
Yeah.
Just get it taken care of. Just get it done. I mean, because that was that. Oh, and the kind of other small part. The house was located. The street name was Trap, and so we went to that as Trap House. So it just kind of added a bit of a character to the whole situation too.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we've had the cleaners once or twice refuse to go in, and like we're not going in there. All right, well, we'll find somebody that will. There's always somebody that will. Always somebody that will.
That almost shocks me. Like this is kind of the. I mean, the cleaners that again, I used to use back in South Dakota, they would, they were right. I mean, again, those were our probably the vendor we probably use the most based off of volume, just as of how much work we'd give them. But there would be, it didn't matter what the situation was. They would, you can point you to the property, say we need this cleaned, and they would just they'd have to go get trailers and pick up stuff, put in a trailer, haul it away, like whatever it took to get the job done. And when you find vendors like that, that's always the really good vendors. Like, I'd rather have a vendor come and say, like, look, this, I'm not going to do it for my normal rate. This is too much. This is beyond what I'm normally doing. I'm charging you these extra costs because this is just too much. That's fine. I'll take that. But when you come back and say, I can't do it, like, I just, that mentality doesn't work with me. It's like, what do you mean you can't do it? Like, I can go do it. I mean, it's like, there's a, one of the people I used to work with, he would have the saying, it was the $10,000 test. It was, if there was $10,000 on the other side of the thing that you had to do, could you do the thing? Like, if someone said, here, clean out this house and we'll pay you $10,000 cash, would you go clean out the house? Is it possible? And oftentimes if you think through that, it's like, okay, sure, yeah, if there's $10,000 on the other side, then I can get the thing done. But the difference is that there's not enough incentive for you. The value proposition isn't there. And so at least you know it's possible. So let's work out the equation and figure out, how do we get from where we are, where you don't want to do it, to where it is possible and you want to do it. Like, let's connect these points. Yeah. Just saying, nope, can't do it. Not, okay. And maybe it is. Maybe it's like, oh, sorry, I have too much time and I already have a number of contracts submitted. So I guess there's situations, but still, just let's focus on the possible and not.
Right. Yeah. Part of that is the labor market, or, like here, there's so much demand for anything that for any tradesman, kind of lumping the cleaners into the trades, and that they can pick and choose.
Yeah.
We do things a little different here in terms of leasing apartments for the students. So we are signing our leases, right? We start advertising our student housing just after Christmas. And we are just finishing up signing our leases for July and August. We're at the end of it now.
Oh, wow.
I am scheduling my vendors for the turn season. So we have a turn season, right? Where the kids graduate, the next group's coming in. So every apartment in town, and there's a lot of them, is trying to get turned over, so that the new tenants can. So I'm scheduling my cleaners, my painters, my flooring guys. I'm doing that right now as we speak. Because if I don't have them locked in the next 20 or 30 days, they're not even going to answer the phone in July, because they're already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so you got to really think ahead. And, but yeah, the cleaners, like, I don't know. I got 15 other easy jobs over here that I could have turned down to do your hard job. So I'm just not going to do it. And it's the same with anybody, we got 2 people in our area that repair appliances. That's it, 2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how long does it take to get somebody to come in and look at a dishwasher or a washing machine? And if they could pick and choose. Luckily, the guy likes me for some reason. It's he answers, like, it's really weird, because if I call my phone, I get a call back. I have one of the guys from the office call. You're like, he's not calling me back. He's not calling me back. Like, let me call. So he knows my number, and so he answers, like, yeah, I'll go over and take a look at it. But yeah, they're not taking new customers, not taking new clients. It makes kind of a difficult situation for trying to get stuff done.
Oh yeah. I'm actually kind of curious, because I mean, oftentimes it seems like with the way how expensive it is to get an appliance repaired, and how cheap a lot of appliances are.
Yeah.
Like, it's even getting to the point where most of the time it's like, do we just replace the appliance? Like, how old is it? And let's not even bother with doing appliance repair because it's just so challenging.
A lot of the times he calls me, he's like, Eric, you just need to replace it, but I do have more, if it were solely my decision, I'd probably just replace them all. But sometimes others, they want to know that you made an effort to get it fixed. But you're right, it's really just wasted money having the guy come down and look, and you look at like a refrigerator and, it's always there's some circuit board in the refrigerator that's gone bad. But that's the value of the refrigerator. My parents, I had have a gas range in their house, and long story short, they moved into this place. I got the appliances put in there, and so there's a gas range in there. And about 6 months into it, it quits working, and so I said, let me take a look at it. So there's a PCB, a printed circuit board in there, and that was bad. And so I said, wow, like 4 plugs and 3 screws. Let me order this thing. And it was like $300 for the circuit board, and I think I paid $400 for the range. It's like, and if I did it, so we kind of came out okay with, if I had to pay somebody, $150 an hour to go out there, put the $400 circuit board, because he's going to mark it up, right? And so, so you're right. I mean, I need to say it, but I might as well just throw it away from an economic standpoint.
Well, and honestly, it's even where a lot of again, just from personal experience, it's a lot of the cheaper, like Whirlpool, like it seems like the cheaper Whirlpool appliances, they seem to do actually maybe a bit better in their longevity than something like a higher end Bosch might do. Like it's people even try and think, well, I'm going to go pay more money for this more expensive one, hoping that it's going to last better, and it just doesn't. And instead, you're now saying, well, now the economics changes. I mean, let's say instead of a $400 range, it's an $800 range.
Yeah.
Well, now it makes more sense. Get it repaired.
Yeah.
Well, maybe something else breaks, and now it's another $300 repair, and it's just it's unfortunate. I wish it was just you'd have quality appliances that aren't overcomplicated, but I guess it's 2023, so it's a pipe dream at this point.
You see these so water heaters. There's some we got, they're 25 years old. They're chugging. They do great, look perfect. But those were built 25 years ago. You get a water heater that's built, 10 or 12 years ago. I mean, that's a 10-year life expectancy, and right about 10 years, they fail. There's no more going to be water heaters sitting around for 30 years. Same with the refrigerators. There's some old, we had 1970s, 80s refrigerators in some of these houses. Not a problem out of them. And the 5-year-old some is broken. It is uneconomically repairable. It's just the way of the world these days, I think, of how they manufacture stuff.
Well, there's a saying that people talk about, again, this is maybe a bit away from property management, but people look at these, bridges. Oh, there's some thunder. People look at these bridges that the Romans built, and or these really old roads, and it's like, oh, how come they could go and build these incredible structures that aren't falling apart, are so strong, yet our local town isn't able to do it? And it's the great quote I heard about this is that anybody can go and build a bridge that doesn't fall down. An engineer's job is to build a bridge that barely doesn't fall down. And when it comes down to like designing these appliances, this seems like what they're trying to do is like, we need to get an appliance, not one that's going to be this robust machine that lasts for a long time. We want to get an appliance that barely works in a sense that it functions, it operates. But if there's a part where, because if you're making 10,000 units and there's $1 that you can save, now you just save $10,000.
Right.
And so if you can shave small bits of price here and there, to maybe it might affect how long it's going to last. But hey, the company's saving money, and it's just the way manufacturing is now. So unfortunately, that's a new reality you have to deal with.
I worked very briefly for a company out in California that built printed circuit boards. So my job was to make sure we paid less for the materials that we were selling for, right? So we're talking all the transistors, capacitors, resistors, all that stuff that goes on that printed circuit board. And we were pricing it at 4 decimal points, and we're making money per decimal points. So on 1,000th of a cent, that was a $26 million a year company. But 1,000 per board, 10,000 boards a day, it adds up. It adds up real quick.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I think there's a lot of planned obsolescence. They're like, design it so that it lasts 10 years. Because I want to sell another one at 10, not 25 years. And that's what they do. They're going to do it. Because you could almost set your watch by.
Yeah. And how long do they say that people buy houses? Isn't it like people spend 7 years on average in house, or is that number changed?
Yeah,
and
so 7 years to make break even.
If 7 years to break even. Okay.
If you're gonna, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, but so the idea is, let's say someone will sell a house. They put a new appliance into the house, a new dishwasher, new oven, whatever it is, to try and increase the sell value, the price they can sell it for. Person moves in, they use the appliance, or it's a really bad appliance and they have to replace it when they first move in. The idea is, hey, they can go and use that appliance for 10 years. They're probably going to move within in that 7 to 10 year mark, and then it's not their issue anymore. So maybe that plays into it too, that there's been some market research.
There's
that's getting a bit beyond the property management side.
Well, let me pull it. Use this comment. I'll pull it half around the property man. They're building a lot of, I call it luxury student housing. Okay, this is hardwood, stainless steel. There's a small complex they built on their apartment, but they're exterior door apartments, right? So you go in. The rumor I heard is that the company that does this, their business model is they build them, they run them as apartments for 10 or 15 years, and then they get them redesignated as condominiums, and they sell them off. So just about the time that all these major appliances, HVAC systems, water heaters are hitting that 10, 12-year mark, they're out. So,
that makes sense.
If that's true, that's a smarter dude than me to think about. That's a good idea. That's a really good.
Yeah.
So,
well, Erik, we're getting here to the top of the hour, so I've got to wrap up the show. But before we do you have anything that you want to plug?
Oh man, Real Property Management Insight, that's our company. We're a national franchise. Oklahoma, not the hassle. We'll take care of you. I appreciate the opportunity coming on. I'd love to come back and chat with you another time.
That'd be great. And then what's your website for people to find you?
Yeah, we're www.insight, INSIGHT,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Erik, for joining us today. And I'd love to have you back sometime. Okay. And then for all my audience, thank you for tuning in. And If you are watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe. And of course, if you're on Spotify, you can find us on Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, all the platforms. We're pretty much everywhere you can. So this is the PMP Podcast. I'm your host, RJ Isaac. Thank you. Have a great day.